Yeah, that wasn't.
And then next thing is going to be the Banks of Young Dragons.
Let me just say this about this last episode. Wow, they certainly turned that kid into a fucking meat sandwich, man.
Yep.
Holy
The
shit.
dragon too.
That was fucking brutal.
It was brutal because you know what? Like even in the book and as I showed you, Luke, it didn't happen like that. I mean, it was brutal, but it wasn't like, you know,
Like-
one bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, and for those of you who are catching up with us, our audience who have been following us on these breakdowns, we're straight up in the Dance of Dragons now. I mean, next season's going to be the full blown war. I didn't even think we would get this far in it. I thought it would end with King Viserys dying, and then the next season we would start off with all this. But no, they wanted to give us a preview of like what's really going on.
I think it was a good decision because
think so,
like
too.
it's definitely, it definitely kind of sets up that where we were kind of assuming that Rhaenyra was gonna like attempt a diplomatic approach to the war, even though she was clearly
Right.
building her armies. That like at some point she was ready to negotiate a peace. We now know ending this season that like that's not gonna happen. This war is
Right.
gonna get brutal.
This is-
It's gonna get personal. It's gonna get nasty.
Narsty, I love that.
Nasty.
I wanna rewind a little bit too to episode 9 with where they were talking about the Luke being Lord, like being named to Driftmark, and basically they were getting ready to hear the petition from King from the Valerians, and Sir Otto the Hand is sitting on the throne listening to it. I gotta say, guys, out of all the Game of Thrones that I've seen, and trust me, I love Game of Thrones. I think there's some amazing scenes in some of the other shows too. When he walked into that Red Keep, man, they're like Viserys, and they do his announcement, and he's like barely able to get in there with that mask on. God
Sick,
damn,
man.
that was a great scene.
It was
That was fantastic.
It's
And
the
then
moment-
when
Yeah.
he dropped his crown and Damon picks it up to him, that was a great fucking scene.
There's a reason I see so many like clips of it online. Like that's the one everybody. It really is a great moment.
It's not my favorite, but I'll get to that one next. But it is a great fucking scene. I
Because the
thought,
whole announcement of like they gave him the royal king, like
yeah,
it felt like the first time in the show for me, dude.
right.
where
When
they
you see a king
respected
like
him.
that, yeah,
They were just like, oh, okay, here comes the king. Like,
Everybody
everybody's just pushing
bowed,
him around,
yeah.
but like when he's at his lowest, he's all decrepit, is when people are like standing up at attention. I was like,
And dude, when he's all like, when he goes, when Valerian like basically tells him like, they're bastards and she's a whore, and he's all like, I will have your tongue. Like they're like just like,
Yeah, dude.
oh shit, he's gonna cut it out himself.
yeah,
Like he ain't playing, man.
yeah.
But my favorite scene, probably in Game of Thrones now, is probably that dinner scene. That
Oh.
dinner scene was, I mean, from start to finish, pretty fantastic. The drama that was happening, the play-by-play of everything. But again, back to Viserys, when he does that, that was one of the best
Guys.
speeches that I've ever heard
dude,
in Game of Thrones. When he was like, set aside your differences, if not for the crown, for family, or for
Your
this old
father.
man who
Yeah.
loves you all so dearly.
yeah,
Like, I was
grandsire.
I mean, your grandsire, right? He's like
Yeah,
your
that was
king. That was a really, really heartfelt speech. Even I was like, damn, dude, like,
He takes off his mask, right? And he shows
Yeah,
him
he
the
shows the
face.
face
because he's
and
like, look at
everything.
my face, like,
he's like, I won't be here walking among you too much longer.
yeah, just
And
stop.
but what was great though too is when like Luke rose up and stuff, and then Aemon rose up like and just stood there in silence.
Mhm.
That was a great scene too.
Yeah.
Aemon claiming Vagar was one of my favorite scenes of this whole season too. That was amazing. I mean, probably equivalent to How to Train Your Dragon for me. And I know that sounds funny to some of you listeners, but I really do actually like the first beginning of How to Train Your Dragon when he's riding Toothless. The very first time, I think that's an awesome scene in movies. But I really liked the way he did Vagar too, because when he's speaking Valerian to him, and Vagar is about to blow him away, and he just rode. I mean, I'm also glad too, Steve. They put Vagar in the perspective that we said, she should have been humongous,
He's
like
a
mountain-
dragon among dragons. You
a
know what I mean?
mountainous dragon. And that's
Yeah,
what
when the
said.
scene, yeah, like Rob, like you were saying, this scene, I did want your opinion on this. They showed like Vagar, like right when he's like the first image you see is like Aemon's coming up to him as a kid. It's very dark. You don't really
Right.
see him until he comes upon him, and then you see his head. You know, did you like until like the last episode? Apparently,
I thought it was still cool. I thought
You
it was
thought it was
great.
cool? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Here's
interesting.
I'm gonna get to the stuff I didn't like though, real quick here. So I really enjoyed all that stuff. I thought that was all great. I think all the dragon scenes are amazing so far. I don't think they've like. I wish the dragons were a little different here and there, but for the most part, they're pretty cool. And really
Mhm.
good special effects. Um, what I didn't like though about the end of the episode was, and I want to know if you guys caught this too, and what you guys think about this, because they seem to do this, and I know what it's for. It's to basically make the characters a little bit more likable in the end of it all. But when Vagar was chasing, chasing Luke, or Aemon was chasing Luke, he said like his dragon blew fire at him, and he goes, "No, obey me, serve me," and then Vagar got all pissed, and then even Aemon was like, "Hey, no, serve me, Vagar," and he was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to kill." Like, he was like, the
Yeah, I was
dragon's
like,
lost
no,
control.
no. Yeah.
And in this book, and in obviously everything else, Aemon wants to kill him
He just goes for him,
straight up.
right?
Just
This
straight up
was-
kills him.
The book Aemon's just like, I'm gonna fucking kill this dude.
Right up, straight up. He's like, I'm gonna kill him. There is no the dragons lose control, so that's how it happened. And it seems like to me like they're just trying to do that to make the characters less brutal and ruthless towards each other. But I'm like, that's it's just kind of weird. It's almost I don't know. To me, it's kind of unnecessary because Aemon's gonna be one of the biggest villains in Game of Thrones. I mean, he is a huge villain.
He's like well, can you say that? I thought that when I first read it, he was the
He
villain.
is the
They
premier
had
villain.
him-
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, well, they
Because
kind
he
of were
lasts
doing it-
more than Aegon does.
Yeah,
And
right.
he actually technically, and they kind of set the scene for the seed for this, Steve. If you haven't noticed, when Aegon is running, which was also a good episode, I thought that was really good. When
was
Aegon didn't want to
fantastic.
rule and he spits in Aemon's face and all that too. He's like, they want to name you king. And he's like, "Pfft," like fuck
He's
you.
like, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to rule. But what was interesting about that is what he said to Kristen Cole. He said, "Why are we chasing him? Why don't you?" He's like, "When they come to me to be king, I know where I'm gonna be found." And he goes, why wouldn't you want the guy who studies history and who knows combat? He's like, why do you just want the fool, basically, which was his brother, which
Yeah.
is setting up for when Aegon does disappear, which, sorry audience, spoilers, he does after the Battle of Rook's Rest. And basically, Aemon is on his own to pretty much be the main antagonist of the whole show. And I also love too, they showed his one eye. I'm so happy they actually did it. I thought they were just going to do that.
Yeah.
I ruled.
The sapphire in it, yeah, that was
Did you like that, Luke?
very, very cool.
Yeah, the eye was awesome. I think again, like one of the whole recurring themes is all about, about the way everybody has to kind of follow these directives, even if it goes against what they want, or even if it goes against logic. Again, there's Aegon has to be, because he's the firstborn. That's what has to happen.
Right.
Like Otto Hightower is otherwise no one's gonna. You can't just put Aemon down there, even though he's probably more qualified, because then you have no legitimacy. It's all, everybody's always tightly wound around these very specific rules that they're in control of, and yet they're also not, because it's because if they go against it, then they're fucking things up. Hence,
it's true.
Hence why they act so quickly in episode 9 when he's dead. They're like, we can't let anybody know out. We can't let anybody know about him dead until we've got all of our ducks in a row. We have to make sure every single noble in the city is on board, and we get rid of anybody that was going to say no. And we can't let word get out. It's it's very clear, and again, the whole time they're still kind of saying well, yeah, technically we're legitimate, but at the same time, we got to do a whole bunch of shady shit.
Right. Well, that's why they're like, he has the Conqueror's sword. He has the Conqueror's crown. He has the Conqueror's name. He was crowned in front of thousands in the dragon pit.
Right.
And I love how Damon's like, that don't mean shit.
He's just like, I don't care about any of that.
I know. I think
Like,
that's
he's
why I
never
love
cared.
Damon in this situation. That's why Damon is such an awesome character for this point in time in the story, because in the war, you really get to see how awesome he can be. I mean, he is probably one of the person you really want on your side for all this kind of stuff.
And then
Yeah, dude,
that,
I like
and then
when
of course
he's like-
the 10th scene, like you see how quickly Damon kind of acts like it's his crown.
Right.
Very
Yes.
quickly. Like
Yes.
in the War Council, he is he is almost fully ignoring Rhaenyra.
He's like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going for it. Yeah, let's do this. do
Yeah,
that.
it's a foregone conclusion, and he's not paying any attention to what she wants.
And he's like, we have more dragons than she does. You know, straight up, he's like, we have dragons.
Exactly, and yeah, because like the battle lines are that technically, obviously the King's Landing people do have more support, because at that point most people wanted the firstborn male to be
Right.
It was because that's the traditional way to do it.
But as you can see from the story, like we were talking about, Luke, it's like, and they did kind of do this, which I am enjoying a lot. There is no real side to choose from. I mean,
Right.
yeah, Alicent did do this, but Rhaenyra is also a shady person too.
Right.
It's like,
Rhaenyra and
there's no
Daemon
right
would
and
not
wrong
be-
here.
They would not be the best people on the Iron Throne.
Right. You're not
on the-
cheering
yeah.
for the best person to be on the Iron Throne right now. You're just picking a side.
Exactly. That's what I like that too. It's a very gray story. It's about just two families really that are kind of stuck in this. So and it's about watching how they'll play out. I think you can root for some people to a certain degree. I think there's a lot both sides that kind of like get bad on. So it's a very like it's much more morally gray than even Game of Thrones was. Which Game of Thrones
You're 100% right.
Game of
Yep.
Thrones
Yep.
had its moments where like individual people on the sidelines had nuance. Some would be bad, some would be good. But I think we all kind of thought like, yeah, the Lannisters are the bad guys, the Starks are the good guys, Daenerys is whatever. And also,
Right.
of course, the White Walkers were objectively bad. They were armed zombies.
I don't know. I think they were the real heroes trying to save us from a terrible fucking ending.
They
They're
tried. Yeah.
reset.
Frankly, yeah.
They saw it happen.
It's a metaphor for everybody sucks. It's just bring on the zombies.
Let's finish up here by, I want to know, what was your guys' favorite thing about this season?
Favorite thing about
Like the scene, character, if you want to lay a little speech on us, I want to hear, what was your guys' favorite take about this whole season?
I'm gonna say for me probably like honestly I want to say broad strokes that would be Damon. I think
I was
Damon
just
is-
gonna say, I told you, he's a great
I think,
character.
I was.
he's
I
really
was gonna
good.
say that,
He's like, and he's so like he's also gross too.
He's a very anti-hero.
Yeah, because he does
Especially that
try
last episode.
because he does fuck his niece.
Yeah.
So it's
It's worse than the book.
yeah. Oh gosh, I can imagine.
It is. It's way worse.
Like he's also so he is he is a really good soldier though, but he's also a murderer. He's like there's a lot. He's a
He's
good
a scumbag.
example. He's a good example of like actual historical figures who were lauded for being great warriors and all that, but they were also because they were warriors, they basically did whatever they want. Like they were like mass murderers,
Right.
mistreated everybody in their lives.
Yeah, because like that scene where that one soldier's like, "Oh, my prince saved me," and he just lands Caraxes on him.
Right. You see what I mean? And I like that about this show. I think that would probably be my favorite. Just the little nuances that Matt Smith does to make him like Damon come to life. Like that was like one of the first ones, right? Yeah, he lands a dragon.
Mhm.
He kills the guard to right. He kills like a guard when they're trying to do that whole escapism with the Valerians.
Oh yeah.
And then the last episode, dude, he straight up chokes,
He checks
Rhaenyra's
Rhaenyra,
easy.
yeah.
Yeah, and then she's looking at him like, oh, he didn't tell you anything, did he?
Mhm.
You know, and it's like that's such a Daemon thing where it's like he is so wild card, and really in the books, you know, with Dance of Dragons, he's really wild card, especially
Yeah.
when they mentioned it. Remember, he's just like, oh, he's naming off all the dragons, and they're like, yeah, they're riderless, but we should find riders. And then when they
Right.
find the riders, you know, then he gets to be a little bit more scumbag. I think he's landed. I think he's landed the role of like you don't trust him, but then you feel like is he
You want
good
him on your
now?
side, though.
You want him on your
Yeah.
side, especially now. What about Alicent, Rob? Like that's another thing. They changed her up quite a bit from the.
I
book.
actually liked the newer version of her more than the
Making
younger
her-
version, because
Yeah.
the older version was way more conniving, way more of an intense kind of character that it made me go like, God, you know, that's someone who I could hate. Like that's
But they're
someone I would.
totally making her like, you know, she's sympathetic rather than just you hating the Greens.
But you
loving
don't
the
really
fact.
know how she is in the book either, though. So that kind of goes with it.
Yeah.
It makes it an interesting dynamic, I think.
Yeah, she's definitely like she obviously a very entitled character, but she's also been kind of put into this situation, you know,
Right.
because of everything. And so there's a sense of her, especially in that scene after Aemon gets his eye cut out.
Right. She's like, give
like-
me your eye.
Exactly. It's a sense of her that like she's done everything right. She's done what everybody else wants from her, and she's still continuously coming out like she's still continuously getting the worst end of every situation. It's like I'm doing what everybody else wanted. I did what my father wants. I'm placating my geriatric limp-dicked husband. I'm letting Rhaenyra do whatever she wants.
Right.
I can't do what I want. And yet, you know, I'm still not nearly as, you know, I'm not getting what I was promised out of this whole thing.
Yeah, she's just a breeding sow pretty much for a while there.
Basically.
Go ahead, Luke.
And that's all I got to say. So.
Oh, of course, I'm gonna join you guys too with Damon. Damon being such an awesome character. You know, I loved him from the books, and I've always talked about him like forever. Everybody like Damon's a great character he's my favorite character. But I'm gonna go a little different on what I really enjoyed, because obviously it was Damon, but I really liked, and I know Steve's gonna disagree with me here, is I really like the way they made Caraxes. I like how he looks. I like the difference. I like he's different than all the other dragons. And I thought that added another part to Damon's character, because he has an awesome dragon. That's one of the things in the book they talk about, is how fierce Caraxes is. He's the bloodworm, you know. He's a dragon that has seen war and that seen battle. I mean, he's missing a fucking eye, which makes him even more terrifying. And he has that weird like screech and shit when he's like aroused and stuff. I just think he's an awesome dragon that they have. I think that was one of my favorite aspects of the show, has been the dragons, because you know it's pretty easy for them to copy and paste some of the dragons from the original show, and they did that to an extent on some of them, but the ones that do look different are really I think they're great. I think they're really awesome. I can't wait to see Sunfire, and you know, because Vhagar looks awesome.
Yeah, dude.
And Sunfire is going to
to
be in the next season, and Sunfire is supposedly the most beautiful dragon that ever existed in all of Westeros. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But they didn't give Aegon his gold dragon yet, which I was
not yet. It's coming.
But it's coming. So yeah,
anything you want to see for season 2, Rob? Just a quick note.
Dragon on Dragon 4.
Dragon on Dragon. But what about Blood and Cheese? Are we gonna get Blood and Cheese?
We are, because that's gonna be the next. That'll be the next episode, is when they kill her kids.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So thank you all for joining us. This has been your small council consisting of Rob, your two noble knights, Steve and Luke. And we like to say bye from you from 20,000 Leagues in the Sea, and we will catch you on the flip side. Please make sure you check out Real Sharks, wherever Real Sharks is heard on any podcast platform, and make sure you check out our store on eBay and on our YouTube. You can buy some of our shirts right here, just like this. One looks like this. The one Steve's got on, you can buy that one. I never break kayfabe. So make sure you check that out and help support our show, and we will catch you on the flip side. Please listen, like, and subscribe. Good night.